My apologies in advance for the amount of time I say girl in this video. It's tragic, but I hope you enjoy anyway. Hey everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this Book Nook. I'm so excited because I'm coming at you guys today with a recommendations video. And no, it's not just any recommendations video. It is recommending you books based off the emojis you gave me. Woo! So essentially, I asked over on Instagram, hey guys, request a book using only emojis, and quite a few of you responded, so I'm really sorry if I don't mention your one today. And if you want to be part of this in the future, my Instagram is Beth_and_books, so make sure you're following me over there if you want to be included in these kind of videos in the future. Before we continue on, please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe down below to help a small booktuber out. The goal is 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and we are on track. So if you're not subscribed, please consider hanging around and just enjoying all the book love, really, team. Okay, on with the video. All right, let's get into it. So the first bunch of emojis I received from you guys is this one. Sorry, I'm looking at my laptop down here. So essentially, Bodies in the Library has given me a skull, a sword, and a mystery person. What do you call them? An inspector? A detective? There we go, Bethany, geez. And I have 3 books for this. First of all, can I recommend The Ninth House? It's a new adult book set in Yale University, and it follows our main character, Alex Stern, I think. Yes. And she essentially stumbles into this murder mystery and she's trying to figure out who did it. But along the way, she gets entangled and ensnared in these university dark magic cults. And she just gets tied into this world. So that's where the fantasy comes into it. That's where the death comes into it. There's like demony creatures lurking in the background. And there is a slight romance, but it's definitely not the main stage. I would also love to recommend Harry the Ninth. Essentially, she's a necromancer. That's where the bony thing comes in, and she and her like childhood evil associate, you know, that childhood enemy, have to buddy up and try to overcome all of these different challenges that they think will help save the world. It's also an LGBTQ book too, which is awesome. Side little note there. And then the next one, The Invisible Library. I love this. My boyfriend picked it out for me in my boyfriend chooses my weekly TBR, and oh my gosh, there's 8 books in the series and I just can't wait to keep reading them. Essentially, our main character belongs to a library that sits in between parallel universes, and her job is to go into worlds such as Earth and retrieve rare books. And along the way, she ends up in, I think it's the 1900s, early 1900s London, where she's trying to find this book, but people die. It gets really intense. There's vampires, there's elves, there's, I think there's werewolves. There's all of this stuff going on, and it's so cool. It's just really fun. I'm probably not doing it any justice, so definitely read the blurb on that. It's a really good series. I'm losing my voice. Alright, the next one. This is the Juniper Library. The Strange Juniper, my bad. And she has given me the Pride Flags alongside some mermaids. This one I find really hard actually to recommend, team, because I can't remember the last like mermaidy book I read. But what I've decided to recommend is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. Now this is dark. This is not a really cute, gay, happy book. It is so dark. Essentially, its origin story for the story is that when the African American slave women were being shipped like things, the pregnant women were thrown overboard, and from their wombs birthed their children. So the original mothers die, but the children survive as they evolve and become mermaids. The LGBT aspect of it comes in that all the mermaids are female. There's no men, and the way they can reproduce is, I can't remember it very well because it's not like a main focus, but just know that it's female kind of relationships. But just be very aware that it's a dark story. It's not one to pick up when you want something light and happy. It's pretty intense. So next up, Louise Stevens. Girl, you gave me these emojis and straight away I was like, Throne of Glass. If you haven't read it, Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas, add these emojis to a T. We have a badass woman in the first book at least. She essentially comes out of prison and has to overcome a bunch of like assassin challenges in order to try win favour with the king. There is romance involved and it's just really good. And then the series is one you've probably heard of by this point, so I won't keep going on about it. Another one I want to recommend for that prompt is The Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. If you are a fan of the Mulan trope, read it. I'm a massive fan of the Mulan trope, and this is literally like Mulan, but instead of being trained into a soldier, you follow the main character, who is basically born to be married as a political tool, and then she gets kidnapped one day, and she becomes one of the dudes in a really interesting change from enemies to tentative friends. So yeah, strong ass woman. Also, she's a descendant of samurai, so the sword comes into it quite well there. One I haven't read but just want to throw out there in case it's not on your radar is Furyborn. As far as I can tell, it's going to be a dual perspective novel between past and present. And in the past, there was a lady who basically was put in a situation where she had to expose herself as one of the prophesized queens, which must have been a dangerous thing to do, and she has to go through like 7 trials to prove that she is who she claims to be, otherwise she dies. And then on the other hand, the other perspective is a modern day person whose mother dies and somehow their stories interweave. In Goodreads it says it's fantasy. I'm not 100% sure where the fantasy comes in, but it's definitely sounding like strong women fight kind of vibes. Gillian reads a lot. Girl, you gave me like a face and a knife. And so to me, this is just like thrillers, right? And whenever I think of a thriller, I can't help but think of these two. So yes, they're everywhere, but if you haven't read them, please consider picking them up. This is definitely the best in the series, in my opinion. I think The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo as a book is so much better than the film. So if you've seen the film and thought it was bad, ignore it. It kind of is bad. Read the book. And then this one links is the Hannibal series. At least for myself, I always thought the Hannibal series was literally about Hannibal, but actually at least the first 2 stories are more focused around other crazy thriller mysteries, and this one is so good, just consider it. I mean, you've also then have this is just going to be a what thrillers are on my shelf, but I guess it works. I'll behave, I won't show all of them on my shelf, but also you've got Gone Girl. I'm sorry if these 3 are nothing new to you, but if you haven't read some of them, do. They are classic goodies for a reason. And I personally am still delving into the thriller sphere. Right, next up, we have Tales and Travels, and these are their emojis. I'm seeing weapons, I'm seeing LGBT, I'm seeing dragon, which in my head is also reading Welsh, and I'm reading romance. So for this one, I thought I would recommend Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. The only point this doesn't mark on is the pride flag there, so I'm sorry about that. So it's basically, we have our main character and she's a Viking kind of woman. She's a warrior until one day, her clan is like Loki slaughtered, and so she goes to infiltrate the enemy to kind of cut them down from the inside, but it doesn't go as planned. Romance, romance. Alright, and then we have a classic enemies to lovers emoji storyline there, and this is one of my favourite tropes when it's done well, but I've limited myself to only recommending 2. And of those 2, one of them is fantasy and one of them is a classic. Surprise! Let's go fantasy. We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal is an absolute piece of art. So essentially, our main character starts off with the Mulan trope, right? She goes into the forest, she hunts meat to keep her family and village alive and surviving in some really harsh wintry conditions, but you're only allowed to hunt if you're a male. But she goes into this forest and the forest is magical, but the forest doesn't kill her. And because of this, she gains the attention of a powerful person, shall we say, and is sent on a quest to find something. So it's treasure huntery too. So it's like Mild Mulan meets Indiana Jones, but super cool interwoven links to the Arabic language and culture. It also has a very gorgeous cover, and the enemies to lovers in this is how it should be done. Is how it should be done. And then for the classic, I'm just showing you my massive collection of Jane Austen, but it's actually Pride and Prejudice. I've mentioned this in the books I don't want to read and said Pride and Prejudice is the only classic I've liked. And yeah, it's a really fun, cheesy, chick flicky, enemies to romantically interested. It's not hard romancy. And to that point, actually, I think this one is like soft action, if you get what I mean. But yes, enemies to lovers is such a good trope. If you guys have any enemies to lovers recommendations, please let me know and I will literally add them to my list without even reading the blurb. Be the reader has just said desert. Give me desert. And Bethany has only read 2 desert books, and only one of them she feels confident in recommending because the other one was nah. But the one that I enjoyed was Eyes of Tambura. This was a beautiful novel that I haven't seen talked about much at all, actually, now that I think about it. Essentially, the people in the world live underground in different layers, and the different layers, i.e. the furthest away from the sun, the richer you get. Because the world above, the sun is like super, super harsh, and you can only go out in certain times of the day. And our main character is essentially a map understander. I cannot words. She essentially reads maps and figures out the clues to tell bounty hunters where treasure can be found, until one day she gets dragged into it herself. And so it's a really dry environment, and it's really sandy, warm coloured imagery. There's treasure hunting, and it's fun. It's an environment, a setting I don't find myself in often, and I think it's done really well in this book. Hippie goddess girl, you gave me these emojis, and immediately I just had to say, Angie Thomas, excuse my price stickers on it. Beautiful, beautiful story. All of her stories are. I'm not going to go into it because you've probably heard of her, but definitely check it out. The other book I've read that I can recommend is The Fire on High, and I definitely thought of this one because you gave me a flame emoji. Here is some flame power. This is a really cool story about a main character who is a young mother who is raising her kid with her personal grandma. So the kid is the grandma's great grandchild. It's about a cool, different topic of cooking. Our main character wants to be a chef, and it's just really fun seeing a character be really interested and passionate about something you don't often see about. And of course, both of these books centre around Black women. Next up, Courtney in her books gave me knife, question marks, skull. I can't. So first of all, okay, of course, my thought was Gone Girl, but Courtney, you've probably read everything by Gillian Flynn if that's the kind of stuff you like. But have you read dun, 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 My Lovely Wife? It's good. Wow, convincing, Bethany. I'm just like, what do I say about this? It's kind of like Gone Girl, but instead of there being such a huge mystery, it's more of a commentary on... Gosh, I'm really stuffing this up, aren't I? Essentially, guys, this couple gets off on murdering people. There we go. Do I have your attention again? They get off on murdering people. It happened accidentally. No spoiler, it's like the blurb. It happens accidentally, and then it kind of becomes a thing. Except the dad, the father figure, sees the toll these murders are having on his kids. His kids don't know they're the murderers, but they know that there's a murderer out there in their neighborhood and they're terrified. So the dad starts to build a consciousness, and then we see what happens from there when you're in a relationship. And one of you wants to stop murdering people, and one of you kind of wants to keep going. The last one I have time for today, so this video doesn't go on for eons, is Mr. Bookish Guy gave me these emojis, and there's a lot here to dissect. So when I looked at this, my thoughts were something a bit creepy, maybe something a bit techno-y, some sort of hero figure, and some fantasy element. So what I came up with, hang on, let me get it off my shelf, Bethany. That would be a smart thing to do, wouldn't it? Is The Book of Coralie by M.R. Carey. And this book was sent to me, by the way, full, I keep saying discrepancy, but that's not actually the word. I realised I defined it on Google and I've been using the wrong word. We all learn. What's the term I'm actually thinking of though? Full, I don't know, just full honesty, guys, full clarity. This was sent to me for free, but I actually really like it. I wouldn't share something. It's not like I get paid to share it. But I love this book. So essentially, think Lord of the Rings meets futuristic world where technology has been lost to humanity, and the people who find, say, a machine gun are essentially the lords of certain areas. It's like Attack on Titan means Lord of the Rings meets Horizon Zero Dawn. That's just the best way I can describe it. Our main character essentially lives in a walled-off village, Attack on Titan reference, and the people in power in the village, like the leaders, essentially have discovered what we would essentially recognise as weapons, modern day weapons. But this is set in the future when nature started to overtake Earth again and reclaim things. So there's fantasy in the fact that trees kill people, like trees can move and snap you up and stuff like that. So that's like a fantasy element. And then it's spooky because at any moment when you're outside of the walls, you can die. And then there's high tension because our man Coralie leaves the walls for, I won't spoil it, for some unfair reason. And then it's his journey, Lord of the Rings reference, through the beautiful nature. And along the way, he discovers technology stuff. I probably completely butchered that. Please do yourself a favour, do me a favour, and go read the blurb of it. But yes, that's the best one I could come up with for that array of emojis. Hopefully, guys, you have found at least a couple of books to add to your TBR notebook. Thank you for watching to the very end. I will spin the wheel in just a second. Thank you for watching this video and enjoy all the places you go in your own reading adventures. I will see you in the next video, team. Bye bye.
Spinning the wheel for my beautiful subscribers.
Oh, so guys, I still haven't fixed the thingy from my latest Chooses TBR. So my apologies for that. We need to do a little bit of TLC on this. But she's alright for another spin. So let's go. I mean, she's not on top, but was very clearly stopping on contemporary. So do you have a contemporary novel on your TBR? That's what you should pick up next. Alright. Bye guys.